The Chevrolet Colorado is undoubtedly one of the coolest looking trucks in its segment. Thanks to its exceptionally low entry price, high practicality levels, and very modern tech, the Chevy Colorado should easily sell like hotcakes. However, it doesn't. It has consistently been 2 to 3 times less popular than the Toyota Tacoma. Today we'll be taking a detailed look at why that is as we check out why the Chevrolet Colorado is not selling for these 6 shocking reasons. Number 6. Unimpressive high-output engine. The Chevrolet Colorado is a thoroughly modern truck, which sometimes isn't a good thing. This is especially the case when it comes down to the powertrains, as the Colorado can only be equipped with 2 turbocharged inline-4 engines, a high-output 2.7-liter and a low-output version of the same engine. We'll talk about the entry-level engine later, as it deserves its own spot on the list, but for now, we'll have to address the stronger option. You see, even though the engine seems potent enough, pushing out 310 horsepower and around 430 pound-feet of torque, which is all fine and dandy, and it allows the truck to tow up to 7,700 pounds, which is class-leading and is undoubtedly impressive. However, what it doesn't do is give out any pleasure to the driver, as its inline-4 layout is simply way too unrefined compared to 6-cylinder engines that you can't help but feel underwhelmed when driving it at around speeds that exceed city traffic. In addition to that, the fact that it's turbocharged means that you'll have quite a bit of instant torque, which, albeit nice for straight-up performance, also translates to a bit less comfort, as you'll feel the truck has a tendency to pull much more unnecessarily. However, the biggest issue here is reliability. You see, a 4-cylinder engine with upwards of 300 horsepower designed for a workhorse vehicle most certainly isn't designed to last hundreds of thousands of miles, as the forced induction makes sure that by the time you're out of warranty, all of the key components are shredded to pieces. In fact, screw smoothness and everything else. Reliability is the key reason why a 6-cylinder engine, in our opinion, still makes more sense than a 4-cylinder one in a mid-size pickup truck, especially when naturally aspirated, like the Nissan Frontier or the Jeep Gladiator. But at least Chevy decided to offer us some form of decency through an 8-speed transmission, which is the better choice than both the 6-speed and 10-speed ones that are mostly present on the Colorado's competition. Number 5. Comfort is mediocre. Now, if you're willing to make a compromise with the engine thinking that it'll be the only one, well, you're wrong. You see, the Colorado also has some terrible issues with its comfort levels, as the ride is far too firm compared to its imminent rivals, especially the Ford Ranger and Toyota Tacoma. You see, Chevy has designed the Colorado as a do-it-all vehicle, sort of like a Warthog from Halo. And while it does excel in terms of off-roading and towing capacity, especially on higher trims, it also feels very nauseating to drive around in the city and on uneven roads. Why? Well, because Chevy outfitted the Colorado with extremely stiff suspension to compensate for its extremely tall ride height. This has been done to allow the truck to seem composed and controllable on the open road, and while it's relatively okay in this regard, it's absolutely terrible at being soft when going over potholes, imperfections, and practically any kind of little nook and cranny on the road. It's like the truck is designed to make you feel miserable every time you sit behind the wheel. To make matters worse, Chevy could have at least made it more engaging to drive by making the steering wheel a bit more direct, as it would be a good combination with the stiff suspension. However, it's as dead at the wheel as the most generic mid-2000s Korean budget cars. But we can't be too harsh here, as the general stiffness and unremarkable driving experience are mostly the result of leaf springs, which, albeit rudimentary, are still the best when it comes down to towing capacity. Number 4. Interior quality is terrible. What made us utterly shocked was how terrible the interior of the Colorado is, and we're not talking about the sub-$30,000 entry-level model. No, we're talking about the range-topping stuff, all of which utilizes mostly cheap plastics on the inside that are extremely creaky and leave a lot to be desired in terms of feeling special from the inside. First of all, the dashboard is almost completely made from hard plastics except for the centerpiece, which is made from a higher quality material on better trims. The door trims are all made out of cheap plastics, and so is the center console, which really gives a bad taste in owners' mouths, especially since trucks like the Toyota Tacoma and Ford Ranger come with much better built interiors. Now, truth be told, we aren't expecting unbelievable quality from entry-level models. However, higher trim levels coming with such cheap interiors simply make no sense, as the GMC Canyon, which is an identical truck to the Colorado, is just better built, comes with much better interior quality for a marginally higher price. So that means the entry-level models are honest and are safe from the wrath of the consumer, right? Number 3. Entry-level models are underwhelming. Well, no, unfortunately not. Entry-level models are just as bad, if not worse, than the higher trim levels. Why? Because of the engine, of course. You see, the low-output version, the 2.7-liter engine, produces less than 240 horsepower and is amongst the weakest engines in the entire midsize truck segment. This is such a big problem because it severely reduces the towing capacity for the Colorado from an actually impressive 7,700 pounds to a minuscule and bottom-of-the-range 3,500 pounds. An entry-level Hyundai Santa Cruz, which is a cheaper and smaller unibody pickup truck, can tow more than that. In addition to this, the truck comes with literally no equipment. Sure, you get a large display, however, you don't get anything else. Painted bumpers, alloy wheels, non-halogen headlights are all an optional extra and cost quite a bit of money. In addition to that, the truck also has zero interior equipment. The entire interior is made out of cheap and nasty plastic. The steering wheel is made out of rubber, the seats are unsupportive, and barely comfortable cloth seats are all you'll be getting for your money. Oh, and you get a 12-inch display for whatever that's worth. Thankfully though, the truck has become better with the 2025 model year, as it at least now comes with a higher output engine as standard. However, it took them 2 years to do so, which is frankly unacceptable. Number 2. Cramped rear seats. What's also unacceptable are the rear seats of the Colorado. Now sure, the rear legroom and headroom isn't much worse than its competition, most notably the Toyota Tacoma, which is pretty comparable to it. However, it unfortunately comes with only one body style option and only one truck bed option, which is why Chevy had to give more thought to the Colorado's interior. As of now, you got 34.7 inches of rear legroom and 38.3 inches of rear headroom, which is worse than both the Ford Maverick and the Hyundai Santa Cruz, both of which are drastically smaller vehicles than the Colorado. In addition, the Colorado's rear seats are positioned very upwards, and the angle between the seating and the back part is almost 90 degrees, making the interior even less comfortable. Number 1. Not a good value for money. All of this brings us to the point that the Chevy Colorado simply isn't that good of a deal for many people, as even though it starts out cheap, it doesn't really offer much for its low price point. The entry-level WT starts from $32,000, which, while a drastically lesser price than, say, the equivalent Tacoma or Ranger, also brings with it a severely under-equipped and underperforming vehicle, especially compared to those models. This is the definition of a one-owner throwaway vehicle, which is why we believe that it's extremely uneconomical to buy it, even though it's a cheap model, as reselling it would be a problem due to its terrible resale value. The same is true for the LT, which starts at $35,000. Sure, it is an improvement over the WT due to it being at least a bit better equipped, and now with the higher output engine being available as standard. This model might be the only one that makes sense to buy, but we'd still tell you to opt for an equivalently priced Ranger. The Trail Boss's $40,000 price tag is just terrible, and from this point onwards, everything just starts falling apart, as the Z71 and ZR2 both cost well over $40,000 and offer very little over their respective Toyota and Ford competitors. However, the worst of the worst is the ZR2 Bison, which is over $60,000 and is worse than the Ranger Raptor in virtually every possible way, especially performance. As a result, if you're up for a Colorado, we'd honestly say that the only one that makes sense is the LT, and we'd stay clear of the rest. There simply are way better trucks for the money, especially when you decide to spend a bit more for any other truck. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.